So the monthly reward card for August was revealed today, and the reward card is probably going to get some people talking. Not necessarily, in my opinion, because of the card, but just because of the timing. Let's just go ahead and take a look at it, right? The reward card is a Pure Blood Elder. It is a 7-cost vampire. It's an endurance card. It is an 8/8. But it's got some abilities, right? So this is no Swamp Leviathan. First, when you gain max magicka, double the amount that you gain. While you have 18 or more max magicka, Pureblood Elder has +8/+8 in breakthrough. Now, there's a lot going on there, so I kind of want to make sure that I cover it. First, when you gain max magicka, this is not just Treeminder, Hissgrove, Thorn Hissmage, triggers, etc., etc., right? This would be even when you would get your +1 to your max magicka for the first, 12 turns or whatever it is of the game, right? Normally you cap at 12, but at the start of your turn when you gain said max magicka, this card will trigger. And if you have multiples, it does double and then double, right? So if you have 2 of them out, you're going to gain 4. Now, we don't have too many reasons to have like an insane amount of max magicka right now. In the past, it was always Hissgrove was our like target of let's get to 15. This card now has an ability that triggers when you get to 18. We might even have ones that are, further and further and further down the line. But this card at least has a lot of potential. When I think about like Ramp Warrior, for example, Ramp Warrior does some funny things with the Venom Tongue and Unstoppable Rage. I've seen people with screenshots of, 30, 40, 50 max magicka because of the Venom Tongue. This would make Venom Tongue just kind of be on steroids, so that's fun. Alright, second part. So what's interesting to me is it says while you have 18 or more max magicka, Pureblood Elder has +8/+8 in breakthrough. We've seen 0 cards that do this yet, but the wording on this makes me hold out hope that maybe at some point we will see cards that will further impact your opponent's max magicka. Right now it's just Garnag, and that's temporary. Though Garnag would remove the buff in this case. So if this is already a 16/16 and you play Garnag, it does drop to an 8/8. Because Garnag does limit your max magicka, but the wording on this lets me at least hold out hope that we might see similar mechanics in the future. So, yeah, that's the card. That's the quick part. I want to talk about this card and when you might use it and its viability, and then also, again, just timing. So I guess we'll start with the timing, right? After the last balance patch, there were a lot of people, and I understand why. I'm not necessarily in the same camp, but I understand why. There were a lot of people that felt that Ramp Scout was like getting a buff because it got a slap on the wrist with the Solitaire nerf, and so many other decks seemed to be also catching nerfs, and they just happened to be decks that were good against Ramp Scout. Having played a bit since the patch, in my opinion, in all honesty, most of the balance changes didn't really impact a whole lot. Like they did. Games play differently now, but the decks that were good against Scout are still good against Scout. The decks that Scout was good against, Scout is still good against. The card and balance changes really were more, in my opinion, about changing the way the flow or the pace of the game went, as opposed to changing outcomes. So, anyway, this card being the monthly reward card when so many people were already feeling like Scout was going to be everywhere, it's just kind of funny to me, right? Like, it reminds me of when Control Monk was very, very, very popular after Fall of the Dark Brotherhood. And we got the Breeding Pit, and then after that we got our buddy who drains, right? And there was a time when I had said that, if they would have printed that Monk card a month earlier, there might have been a riot. And this kind of reminds me of that. But though I find the timing interesting, I want to say, and I want to go on record, and we're going to talk about use and viability now. I don't think that this changes much. So, like, if you're one of those people who's just already really upset at the popularity, we'll say, of Ramp as an archetype, this card doesn't make Ramp any better, at least in the current state of things, for Scout. What I suspect is that you'll probably see a few people playing more Ramp Warrior, because I think that this card fits better in Warrior. The fact that it gains Breakthrough, I think, does more for Warrior than it does Scout, but the truth is, this doesn't do a ton for Dragon Scout, I guess that's actually what I want to say. Dragon Scout, you're not probably going to play this over your Elder Spine because you want to be able to trigger your Woodland Lookout. You're not going to play this in addition to Elder Spine. This doesn't do anything to impact the board when you immediately play it. It doesn't even gain you the Max Magicka when you immediately play it. You have to wait till some other effect, whether it's wait till the start of your next turn or play this in conjunction with something else. You have to do something to get, effects out of this. Otherwise, it's kind of just a glorified Swamp Leviathan. So, if you're running Dragon Scout specifically, I don't think you even end up including this. Like, you look at that list top down, you're not cutting your Skeletals for it. If you do slide in a couple of Baronesses for the mirror, you're not cutting Baroness for it. You're not cutting Nahagleave for it. Like I said, you're probably not going to cut Elder Spine because you want those Woodland Lookout triggers. This doesn't do anything to help you in the aggro game, at least for Dragon Scout. But what this card does do is it does potentially impact the mirror, right? Scout versus Scouts. One of the things I talked about when Solitaire was nerfed was that that nerf interrupted what I called the 3-5-7 opener, right? With Scout. Basically, you were trying to go, either Treeminder or Hissgrove into Hissmage, and then in the old one, it was like Solitaire your Hissmage and replay it. This card could instead be your 7-drop, right? So you can still have a really, really good 3-5-7 opener in the mirror, right? When you're not facing aggressive beatdown style plays. That's huge, right? If you're in a Scout mirror and you go 3-5-7 and you're the one who leads off with a Pureblood at that point, you're in really good shape. But yeah, this card doesn't help against aggro, right? So if you're playing against like tokens, and tokens are traditionally pretty favored against Scout, if they flood the board and you go 3-5-7, but this is your 7-drop, this doesn't have guard, this doesn't gain life. Even if this thing had like Drain, well, if it had Drain, it might help in the token matchup, assuming they don't have the Imprisoner or whatever, but it just doesn't do enough to help in the aggro matchup. So let's be honest. This card is cool. I think that the art is fantastic. But it's not going to change much, at least in my mind, for any matchup other than Scout mirrors. It might mean we see a couple more Ramp Warriors see play. It also might mean, and this is the last thing I want to touch on, other thing, might mean we actually see more Scout, or the return of Scout that's not Dragon Scout. So right now Dragon Scout gets played a ton because of Woodland Lookout. And when you go that route, there's a bunch of other things that you include and that you're going to be playing as a result. If you choose to not do Woodland Lookout, so if you're on the Alter Scout package and you're focusing more on like beefy giant bats for your life drain, you would definitely run this card over, say, Elder Spine. And if you happen to run, so again, thinking about drain, right? If you happen to run, 1 or 2 Snaketooth Necklaces, draining for 9 is kind of a big deal. That might help you against certain aggro decks, right? Like if you can play this and they don't just have the nuts and kill you quick enough, using this to trade into something and drain for 9 might buy you enough time, who knows? So, again, in a non-Dragon Scout version, you might see play there as well, but like really in my mind, this card is just another tool to help you win the mirror, period. Scout versus Scout, with the exception of a couple of Leaf Lurkers, and Red Brahmin as like pseudo removal, They just don't really have a lot of hard removal, right? So big threats are big threats in the mirror. This is a big threat. It's a big threat that also helps you ramp. While this does absolutely nothing to help you against aggressive decks, and while Scout already had more than enough ways to beat other control decks, this card is the Scout versus Scout answer in my mind. So yeah, that's my first impression anyway. I'd love to hear, what you guys think, both about the timing of the release, about how you think of the card, whether you think it's good, bad. As I said, I don't think it's going to change much about Scout's game plan. I don't think it's going to drastically change anything at all in terms of popularity and how that deck plays out. So let me know what you think. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time, may you walk on warm sands.